The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with the panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we're going to discuss the... Scott, I keep hearing
I don't think anybody hears that, Scott, but you know what? I'm going to get a soundtrack. I'm going to add it in just for Scott.
Every time I say the name of the panel, Scott goes, I don't know what that's all about.
I'm going to find a cheer soundtrack.
It's the
right
crowds
there.
cheering for President Bounds.
Oh, yay! So the arresting of judges and having ICE barreling into the courtrooms or walking or striding with power, however it was that they entered into the courtrooms during an ongoing hearing and simply interrupting court proceedings. And then, of course, arresting the one judge in Wisconsin and then the other in New Mexico, was it? And saying that the judge was colluding, the one in New Mexico, or was a gang member, or his wife was a gang member. I don't remember, but the judge, or was it in Texas? And the judge in the sitting judge in Texas handed down an excoriating order against the Department of Justice, saying that you have absolutely nothing. This is a waste of the court's time. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because these constant incursions and behaviors on the parts of ICE are just inconsistent with the Constitution. Who would like to start?
I guess me. I was actually listening to crowd cheering noises, MP3, so I could start adding that in.
I can just go
anyway.
like this.
Yeah. Judges, I guess the way I heard it described the best was it is civil disobedience by judges. It's brave, civil disobedience have its consequences. The fact is that it's good civil. It's good trouble, and I think you're going to see more judges in these positions of power. Because let's face it, most judges, when they sit on the bench, they're all powerful on that bench. That's their home. Your home court. That's a very powerful position to be in, no matter at what level of a judge you are. In the higher level you get, even the more power you have. But even the magistrate, the simpleton magistrate, has quite unlimited power sitting in that room behind that bench in those robes, and it's a place where if you're going to make a statement, what a more powerful place to make a statement than sitting from the bench itself. And yeah, I look at it as civil disobedience, and I look at it as a very powerful showing of civil disobedience. And it's even more powerful, as far as I'm concerned, than, say, with the civil rights civil disobedience that was like some of the politicians that were out there and were doing it. Some of these judges aren't elected. They're appointed. I mean, so a politician engages in civil disobedience basically to get headlines. He wants to get some ink in the copy. I mean, that's why they do it. These judges are doing it because in their mind, they believe it's right. I mean, they truly do. And depending on the judge, this civil disobedience could have greater consequences than the politician. The congressman is going to get elected probably in 2 years anyway, because in the United States, we don't, elect somebody other than who we have. 95% chance of getting your job back if you're a congressman. Judges, again, some that are appointed for life, they could be impeached, although that's not probably going to happen. But you've got those ones that are up for election, and yeah, there's a possibility. They're not the sure thing that the congressmen are. And this civil disobedience, I think, is even more powerful because the amount of time, treasure, and credibility that they put on the line is far greater than just say the average citizen who goes into the protests and protests on the street. Although I would say that's a good civil disobedience as well. Sit in protest, great civil disobedience. Or again, as I said, the politicians who will do it more for the headlines and the copy and the kudos than they will for anything else. But when you're a judge, this doesn't happen in the judiciary. The judiciary never gets involved in politics, in theory. And when you start seeing judges from the bench acting and performing civil disobedience, I think it's a powerful statement that you have to sit back and you have to take notice, and you have to give these judges a lot of credit, in my mind.
Okay. It's an interesting take. I would just say that the judges are supposed to uphold the law, interpret the law as best they can, and that Trump has been a particularly lawless person his entire life, and has never until fairly recently been held to account. He is a 34 count convicted felon, and never particularly cared for judges before that, and certainly hates them all now. At his rally last night in Michigan, he attacked the judges who are, out there performing, whether it's just their jobs or some kind of civil disobedience, by saying we cannot allow a handful of communist radical left judges to obstruct the enforcement of our laws and assume the duties that belong solely to the President of the United States. Judges are trying to take away from the power given to the president to keep our country safe, and nothing will stop me in my mission to keep the country, America, safe again. Fact is, it's not liberal judges who are doing this. The Supreme Court, which conservatives have a 6-3 lead on, have stopped him from shipping more people to El Salvador without due process. It is a function of the judiciary to be a check on executive power, and that is what they are doing, and good for them for doing it. I don't know what he's got planned for them. I don't imagine it's anything real good, but I think that it's really important that the judges continue doing what they're doing, because as I've said before, nobody else is coming to save us. Nobody's coming to save us. Judges aren't saving us, but judges can slow him down, and they can stop him from rashly acting in the way he has been, which has been sloppy, illegal, and sending a lot of people to bad places and prisons and out of the country when he doesn't actually have the authority to do that. So he's got he knows nothing about basic economics. He also knows nothing about basic law. And I think it's really important that the judges continue doing the good work that they're doing.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. Why then would the judge issue a statement of regret through her attorney? I don't follow that.
Which judge is it? The Dugan?
The judge in Wisconsin. I'm not quite sure what would make her do that. And of course, the photo of her that was taken, and then Kash Patel's, raving about how wonderful the perp walk was, and in a tweet, and that was just uncalled for. He took it down, apparently, or someone told him to take it down, but then I'd heard it went back up again. I don't know if that's true. Do either of you know about that?
I do not. I know that there was a lot of talk about the fact that this was really some more like Trump administration performance art, as so much of it has been, that they really tried to make this as big a deal as they could. Everybody knows who this judge is at this point, has seen her picture, and I don't think it has. I don't think it's germane anymore to the situation. I am confused, though, when you say that she put out a statement that said that she was what? I saw something where she said she was disappointed that she's been suspended.
No, she regretted the incident or something like this.
I haven't seen that, but okay.
Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, but Wisconsin is a a state that, has been fairly active when it comes to putting down the worst instincts of our country sometimes, right? The Fugitive Slave Act was something that is in the wheelhouse of the court system from Wisconsin. There are other instances of Wisconsin judges fighting for freedom and fighting for democracy. So it's not unusual for a liberal state, I guess you would say, even though it's kind of purplish at the moment, like Wisconsin, to stand up for what's right.
Did you find it, Brooke?
Apparently, I think she may have said she regretted the arrest. Let me see. Yeah, she wholeheartedly regrets and protests her arrest.
Yeah.
Okay. So her attorney said.
So that's pretty much anything but an apology.
Yeah, that's true. She was visibly angry. She pronounced the situation absurd. Yeah, no, that's what she said. Okay. So she's been suspended now. Okay, so what happens now?
Good question. I mean, this is, I'm assuming she's under the Wisconsin's Supreme Court. Probably go before them if she's been suspended, or whatever court that Wisconsin has that does these kind of things. The ones that disbar lawyers. They also in Florida there's one court that disbars lawyers and sanctions judges and can actually dismiss them. If it's the same in Wisconsin, I'm not up on what Wisconsin does. The same thing could happen. We'll just have to wait and see. I really would not want to be the guy standing up against her. But again, like I said, it's a sign. It's that civil disobedience, and I understand that Scott sees that as an interesting take. But I always say this: we have to remember that judges are citizens too. Just because they wear the robe does not mean they don't have an opinion, and should not necessarily disqualify them from exercising their rights as citizens beyond being judges. That includes the Supreme Court. Yes, I know they're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be totally about the law, but they're also citizens. And we sometimes have to separate the job from the person. And sometimes the person has a job that can actually make a point a lot better than, say, just walking down the street with a sign. I don't, if Judge Alito, and I don't think very much of Judge Alito or Judge Thomas, if they want to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue in a protest with a sign, okay. I honestly, I think sometimes the expectation that they're supposed to be above and beyond that, I can't see. You cannot say you are being made a judge. Now you're not a citizen. All the rights and all the things that you could do as just a regular citizen are now totally taken away from you. Totally taken away because of the job that you have. And I think sometimes we've got to separate that. And I think that was my point of this. It's supposed to be separated, especially when it's been the judiciary. But we're seeing judges now that are saying, no, I'm going to show civil disobedience in my job. Just like that congressman. Just like, a cop, the cops that go on strike, just like all, the sanitation workers go on strike. We're citizens too. We have the right to stand up and voice our opinion, and the hell with you. As long as the cases that come before us, we adjudicate to the law. Okay. How many times have we heard judges in the cases where Trump's been in, basically land-based Trump administration, land-based Giuliani, land-based, Bannon and Navarro and all these other clowns. How many times have we heard indecisions where judges simply land-based them? And it's done all the time, just as much as those that land-based Navarro and Bannon and all those other yo-yos from the Trump administration, both past and present, have done so in the past. So that was my point about the idea of civil disobedience from the bench. Maybe it's about time. As long as they continue to do the job they're supposed to do, and they do it, honor, integrity, and adherence to the law. I guess that's it.
Well, and no fear or favor. What about the other judge who was arrested? I know very little about that one.
Wasn't that New Mexico or someplace?
Yeah, I think.
I honestly have not really, I really haven't paid much attention to it. I'd have to really look it up before I could even make any kind of comment on it. And again, we have to remember that you're not getting the whole story of all this stuff. We got the Wisconsin one. Anyway, I think we got a pretty good idea. I think there's some things down there it's still developing.
Well, look, just going back to Judge Dugan in Wisconsin, the facts of the case are, becoming more and more evident, although there is a lot of discrepancy whether it matters if a warrant is judicial or administrative, for example, right? So the ICE agents who went to the courtroom had an administrative warrant. I think the idea there was that they're supposed to arrest people out on the street, not in a courtroom. They went into the courtroom. Maybe that's a factor in the judges thinking that, I want to get this person out of my courtroom. She's been charged with obstruction of justice. There could be an interpretation of what she did that is obstruction of justice, although it's also possible that she just wanted to get the guy out of her courtroom, and letting him go through the jury door was the least dramatic way of doing that. But these are legal matters that are going to be sorted out. And I also know, I think everybody here probably does, that judges in a courtroom are like captains on a ship. They're supposed to follow the rules, but they are the ultimate authority in their courtroom. And that whatever it was that she thought she was accomplishing, whatever she was doing with this particular individual, who I have to say, like, he's not a hill I'm willing to die on in this particular case. He was in court. He was getting due process. She's the one actually who canceled his hearing when she found out that there were ICE agents waiting for the hearing to end so that they could arrest him. She didn't tell anybody that she decided to reschedule the hearing for another time and spirited him out the side door. This is a complicated case that I for one don't feel qualified to really comment on. If Mark is correct and she's acting as in a sense of civil disobedience, I'm not sure that I think that it's necessarily appropriate in this case, but again, that'll have to be adjudicated, as I think it will be at some point or another, and she may end up doing 6 years in jail for obstructing justice and whatever the second charge was about aiding and abetting a prisoner from escaping or whatever he was considered at that time. The key, I think, for all of us is that everybody in this country, whether they're a citizen or not, deserves due process. And that as long as there's due process, it's hard to get too upset about what happens. But if there is no due process, as the case of Abrego Garcia, then it's a nightmare for everyone. And
Right.
And we can't tolerate that.
That I would agree with.
Yes. So thank you both, and thank you to our listeners. Stay safe, everyone, and look out for one another. And
for ICE agents.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, we have to add that in there too. Look out for ICE agents. And we will see you again next time.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society. I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert, cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com.